Welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast, your home for weekly information and inspiration to help you get the graduate job of your dreams.
Hello and welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast with your host, James Curran. The Graduate Job Podcast is your home for all things related to helping you on your journey to find that amazing job. Each episode I bring together the best minds in the industry, speaking to leading authors, graduate recruiters and career coaches who bring decades of experience into a bite-sized weekly 30-minute-ish show. Put simply, this is a show I wish I had when I graduated. And a big hello to episode 108 of the UK's #1 career podcast. And today we go transatlantic again in the search for the best job search advice on the planet, as I speak with best-selling author Lauren Herring, author of the new book Take Control of Your Job Search, 10 Emotions You Must Master to Land the Job. And in today's episode, we focus on that topic of emotions, those pesky things that, left unchecked, can hold you back and can get in the way of getting you that dream graduate job. We explore fear, how it shows up, how to conquer it, and why you should think about the worst thing that could possibly happen. We discuss rejection, why it is part and parcel of looking for a graduate job, and why you shouldn't take it personally. We delve into the topic of frustration and how you can overcome it, and also the issue of confidence and why you need to unleash your inner rock star. And we also explore why it is absolutely crucial that you have self-compassion as you look for a graduate job, and why, if you wouldn't say it to a friend, you shouldn't say it to yourself. It's a thought-provoking episode, and as usual, you can find a full transcript and the links to everything we discuss in the show notes at graduatejobpodcast.com/emotion. Before we start today, let me tell you about my brilliant new step-by-step online course, How to Get a Graduate Job, which is live. The first cohort of members are in. The private members webinars are taking place on a Tuesday evening, and I have to say the feedback is that they are loving the 8 modules, the 23 video tutorials, the 14 hours of content, and the 20 plus handouts. As one of the members said, I just love having all the information I need to get a graduate job in one place. If you are serious about getting a graduate job, if you want to turbocharge your job search, if you want to know all the pitfalls and mistakes so that you don't make them yourself, and if you want to know exactly what you need to do at each stage of the process to get on a graduate scheme, then head to howtogetagraduatejob.com and sign up. howtogetagraduatejob.com and sign up. It's an investment in yourself which will pay itself back many thousand times over when you get that graduate job of your dreams. So go to howtogetagraduatejob.com and sign up now. Right, let's crack on with the show. I'm pleased to welcome to the show today, all the way from the USA, career development expert and CEO of Impact Group and author of the new book, Take Control of Your Job Search, 10 Emotions You Must Master to Land the Job. Welcome, Lauren Herring, to the Graduate Job Podcast.
Thanks so much. So glad to be here.
And Lauren, I've given you a very brief introduction there. Would you like to introduce yourself properly to the listeners?
Absolutely. Thanks very much. My name is Lauren Herring. I'm CEO of Impact Group. Impact Group is a global career and leadership development company, and we work with global 500 companies and all sorts of jobs, either when they've been laid off or as they actually relocate around the world on expat packages. So we help people find jobs. We do so in about half the time of the U.S. national average. And so obviously that's a moving target around the world, but we just have a lot of history, 30 years of history doing this. And I decided to take all of that experience and put that into my new book, Take Control of Your Job Search.
Excellent. And that is the book that we're going to discuss today. So maybe let's starting at the beginning then, Lauren. Lots of people listening will be getting ready to start applying for graduate jobs shortly. So over these coming months, what would you say are some of the emotions that they need to conquer before they start applying?
Well, Job search is a highly emotional experience no matter the situation. Obviously, in the world of a pandemic with COVID and the unemployment numbers that we're seeing, the emotions are especially running high. So what we're seeing a lot of right now, but again, this is consistent in any job search, is fear, fear of rejection, frustration, confidence, and anxiety.
And yeah, that fear is such a big one. I was speaking to a coaching client the other day, and they got really good academic background. They got really good work experience, but they were scared to sort of apply for jobs because they just didn't think that they were going to get it. But they had great experience. It was just a question of, well, you're never going to get a job if you don't apply for it. You've just got to take that step forward and just start applying. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. But you do see that fear really holds people back from trying to get the job of their dreams.
Yeah, and one of the things that some advice that was given to me once, your job to identify if you're interested in a job, it's their job as the employer to figure out if you're the fit for the job. So all you need to do is identify if you're interested and then go for it. Because what's the worst that can happen? You move on to the next opportunity.
No, definitely. I really like that. That is a really good quote. And for people who find themselves in this position, who maybe just feel that they're holding back because of that fear, are there any exercises or activities that you'd recommend that they can work through to try and just get over themselves in a nicer way? Didn't mean it to sound like that.
Exactly. Well, so fear can show up in the job search in a number of different ways. So it can either stop you in your tracks, like the individual you were just talking about, where they didn't want to even apply. Then the other end of the spectrum could be that you're just going in kind of a manic mode where you're just going, not coming up for air and maybe not taking a look at what's going on around you and adjusting. So first of all, get clear on what's going on in your mind. So are you scared and then you are just balling up, or are you going nuts, or are you even aware of what's going on in your emotional state? So sometimes just taking a moment to think about what's going on and allowing yourself to feel it. It's okay to be afraid in a complicated job market like we have right now, but you can't let that stop you. So one of the things that I find to be a great exercise is just ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I mean, obviously you can go to an extreme, like I'm never realistic. So let's think about what's legitimately the worst thing that can happen in the coming months. And so then how do you prepare for that not to happen, number one? And even if it does, what would you do if it does? Would you end up moving back in with your parents, or would you find a friend to find a flat with? So that you just have a little bit of preparation for a cushion, so that then you know exactly what you're afraid of, rather than being scared of the great unknown, which a lot of times can be worse than what is actually the likely scenario.
Yeah, and I really like that. And when you think about it from a job perspective, the worst that can happen is that someone says no. And as you mentioned earlier, then you move on to the next job, and you keep rolling on and just keep applying. It's a difficult time when you're putting yourself out there and you're waiting and opening yourself up for rejection, but it's one of the rules of the game that to get a job you need to apply. So you need to just get over that fear.
Another example that you can do that's kind of similar to that is actually ask yourself, what is the root of this fear? Because this individual that you're talking about isn't applying to jobs right now, probably not just because of the atmosphere of what's going on, but there's probably some other layers of fear that have been going on. And so taking a little bit of time to either journal, reflect, talk to a friend, even talk to a professional and find out what is the root of this fear. And if you can start to address that root, then you can start to take forward progress.
Yeah, I really liked that part.
Then you can start to take forward progress.
Yeah, I really liked that part of your book. You had a paragraph which was titled "How Old Is Your Fear?" And I know when I've tried to work on myself and look through things that I've been scared of, often it does these are quite long-standing things from something in your past that you're still holding on to, and maybe 15, 20 years later the situation's completely different, but you've still got that fear in the back of your head. So it's it's really good advice there, just to work through some of these things and see if you can pinpoint what actually might be the trigger for it.
Mm-hmm.
And another funny thing with fear is that people don't realize just how everybody feels it. So, all the different applicants, no matter how qualified you are, people will still be scared that they're going to get rejection. So it's, one of those things where you really do just have to take the leap. And
everybody is in the same boat here. Everybody's afraid of what's going on. And so the big separator is going to be, how do you address that fear that's going to separate you from being able to stand out?
And as I mentioned, part and parcel of applying for jobs is opening yourself up to for the prospect of failure. How would you recommend that people begin to think about rejection, which is something that, no matter how many jobs you apply for, sadly you're going to get some rejections back. How can people then begin to deal with that emotion of the thanks but no thanks email and, not today?
Yeah, no matter how many times you hear this, it sounds a little trite, but this is not a personal process. It feels very personal to you as a job seeker who is receiving the no. But on the other hand, the only thing that no really means is that this company or this organization felt that somebody else was a better fit for this job than you were. And that could be because they actually used to work at the company, or it means that they had a slightly different background. So this is not about you personally. It really is a business decision on the part of the organization. And so the more that you can really try to understand that, then the better you as a job seeker are going to be able to deal with this rejection.
Exactly. And you never know, it might have been the person who got it might have been the boss's nephew or someone who did their internship there or whatever it might be. And your CV was perfect. It just wasn't quite, for whatever reason, it just, there was somebody else who was better suited on the day. But it just, there was somebody else who was better suited on the day. But it's, It's not a reflection on you.
And I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of someone who didn't get a job the first time around, but don't count out that opportunity. If you're really interested in a particular company, make sure that you are following up with trying to understand any aspect of the interview process that you could have done better, or just to understand the company, make sure that they know how interested you are. I can't tell you the number of stories that I've heard where the person who came in second for job A gets the job for job B right away, sometimes without even an interview.
Yep, no, completely. It's showing them just how great you are, and making those connections, and good things can definitely happen from there. So no, it's how can listeners then begin to work through and deal with frustration then, Lauren?
I find that the number one source of frustration in the job search is when you're applying online and you don't hear anything back. I call it the black hole of resumes.
Yep.
And so just not hearing anything back and submitting resume after resume or CV after CV it's an excruciating process, and it causes extreme frustration. So my number one advice for how to overcome frustration is actually to implement better job search strategies. which is network, network, network. So don't depend on the job boards. And frankly, don't even depend on the university career sites or the introductions that you're getting from the university. Frankly, don't even depend on the university career sites or the introductions that you're getting from the university. Take control of your own job search and identify the organizations that you're most interested in working for and see how you can work your own network in that process. Keep an eye on the job boards and figure out how you can connect with the individuals either in HR, recruiting, or even better, the hiring managers. And leverage every connection with your family, your friends, the parents of your fellow classmates, and figure out how you can start to network your way into the companies that you're most interested in working in, because nowadays, 90% of resumes or CVs are not being reviewed by a human being. They're going into the black hole of the applicant tracking system, which is just AI powered computers. And so you could be perfect, but if you didn't have the right keywords in your documents, or if you used class and they were looking for, a synonym of that, then you're not going to show up. And so the only way you're guaranteeing that a human is going to read your resume and your cover letter is if you get it in the hands of someone who has the power to either make an introduction or make a decision.
No, that's brilliant advice. And I know from working, often by the time that the job has been posted on the job board, the hiring manager's actually got in mind, and it's just a tick in the box exercise, actually putting it on the job board just to say that it's been done. So it's such a reactive way to apply for jobs, and very dispiriting, as you mentioned, with CVs and as you mentioned with CVs and applications that you spend loads of time on being sent into this black hole and then just not hearing anything back. And it can be such a frustrating way to do it.
Yeah, and I think that in the world of your listenerships with the graduates of university and graduate programs, that sometimes there's an expectation that the jobs are going to come to me and I will be able to look at the smorgasbord of opportunities and then I'll make my decision. And because you've been able to be successful and get what you want every step of the way along your education. And this is something where you need to make sure that you are taking more control in this process. And that's going to be through building your network.
Definitely. And with LinkedIn these days, it's such an easy way where people who are interested in it, that you can join the discussion and just see who the thought leaders and the movers and shakers are. And it's just such a easy way with LinkedIn to begin to you do the networking process.
Yes.
So following on from frustration and linked to it, it's a topic which is easier said than done in many ways, which is confidence. And you talk in the book about the importance of finding the sweet spot between confidence and vulnerability. How can listeners begin to get this right?
Right. Well, there's an extreme in confidence. And so you can have overconfidence, you can hit that sweet spot, and then you go into extreme forms of vulnerability where then people start to question your competence. And so that sweet spot is making yourself vulnerable enough that people can see that you're willing to grow, you're willing to learn, especially at for the learn in your career. And so just because you've been successful every step of the way doesn't mean that you still don't have a lot to learn. And so making sure that you're coming across as confident and that you know what you're doing, you've been successful, and then also that you're willing to learn and you want to join a great company who's going to nurture that growth as well. So a lot of this also fits in with making sure that you're finding the right cultural fit. So look at the values of the organization. Is this the type of organization that you want to grow with or join so that you can learn? Of course, you don't want to make sure that you're saying like, okay, what are you going to teach me? It's not about you. It's about what you're going to bring the value to this organization. But like I said, it's finding that sweet spot. So you're both likable and showing that you are going to grow and learn.
Mm-hmm.
So you're both likable and showing that you are going to grow and learn.
Mm-hmm. And how about for people who maybe are lacking that confidence, going back to what we talked earlier about being scared and who may be definitely on the underconfident side of things, any activities or tips that you'd recommend for them to maybe boost up their confidence a little bit?
Yes, the job search strategy that really is critical nowadays, and especially for building confidence, is personal branding. And so making sure you're very clear on what it is you want to do, what your strengths are, and how you're going to bring value to an organization. So think about when you've been most successful as you've been in extracurricular activities, in school, in side jobs, in entrepreneurship. You channel that inner rock star so that you can remember when you're interviewing that you are not interviewing as the lowly university student who's pleading for a job, but you are in a position of power where you're bringing value to an organization and you know it because you've been successful in other endeavors. And so can you bring that inner rock star into that interview with you? And especially also when maybe you've just been rejected from an opportunity. Remember, you're not the lowly job seeker. You are a powerful, experienced individual with lots to share.
And I like that. And if you know what your branding points are, or your unique selling points, or however you want to describe it, if you know what they are, and you know them when you go into the interview, the things that you need to be hitting, whether it's your stellar work experience, whether it's your amazing grades that you've got work experience, whether it's your amazing grades that you've got at university, whether it's the course that you've done or whatever it might be. If you know what those key selling points are, what your branding points are, you can just keep on making sure that you're always getting them across in the interview. So they're always going to be impressed by when you keep on pulling these things out.
Exactly. Yes. Come prepared with stories that highlight these points as well.
Yep. And I really liked in the book how you talked about the need to create a super team. Could you explain what this is for listeners when you talk about this super team?
Absolutely. Job search is not an individual sport. This is something where you need a network of support in order to be along for the ride with you. And this can come in a variety of different resources. So obviously you have the network of support with your university colleagues, whether that's in a career center, your students, your professors. So these are the team that's with you and been with you along the ride. You also have your parents or your aunts and uncles or cousins, people that can provide moral support, emotional support, and who are going to be there for you no matter what. You'll also want to figure out who can you tap to be a resource that will tell you the truth no matter what it is, even if it's hard. So that could be a professor that has been important to you, or maybe a friend of the family that you trust who's been in business or something similar, where this is someone who can listen to your interview answers and give you feedback, like, okay, similar, where this is someone who can listen to your interview answers and give you feedback, like, okay, this was really good, but you got long-winded here. You need to get more succinct and tell a story instead so I remember it. So make sure that you have the people on your team to go to for emotional support, professional guidance, build your network, all of the above. And that is going to help you through, because if you're only depending on yourself through this, it's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah,
and be a lot harder.
No, yeah, definitely, completely agree. And from the clients that I coach to help get graduate jobs, that's one of the things that they, I think, really value from the coaching relationship is just, when the going gets tough, that they've got someone impartial who's sort of outside of their family and friends who they can come to, and I can, give them that impartial advice, keep them, encourage them, and keep them. It can be a difficult, lonely journey, especially when you're not getting responses. People are taking ages to come back to you. You're putting loads of time and effort into applications and maybe not getting the outcome you want. So, it certainly does help to have people in your corner who are there to help you through the process.
Yes.
I really liked in the book where you talked about the need for self-compassion and for people applying for jobs just to have self-compassion with themselves as they apply. Again, could you talk us through this one and just what your thinking was around this point?
Yeah, some of your listeners might not even be familiar with the concept of self-compassion, but really it's just about giving yourself grace when you make a mistake or when you don't get the job first time around. How can you, rather than being hard on yourself, and I think that coming out of college and university right now, that is very hard on themselves because you expect so much of yourself. But the reality is everyone struggles in the job search process, and you're not alone. It's a tough market out there, although people are getting jobs. So don't be hopeless about the process, but give yourself some grace and understand that you don't have to be 100% every time, that the next time around you have the opportunity to do better. Here's another way to think about it. If you wouldn't say it to one of your friends, don't say it to yourself.
That is so true. And the people's self-talk that they have, I know my self-talk, and just how critical you can be in yourself. You'd never say that to a friend. You'd think how you encourage your friends and help them and, always positive, but people just don't do that to themselves. And it's such a... Time is running away with us a little bit, Lauren. So maybe a couple of questions before we move on to the weekly quickfire questions. I liked the story you told in the book about a recent graduate called Todd, who was a sort of type A person, always doing a million things. And you talked about his struggle with energy management. And I've not really thought about the concept of energy management before. Could you talk us through what that was and what you worked on in that case?
Sure. So in this case, this was a young man who, probably like a lot of your listeners, are involved in so many different things because, let's face it, as you're going out to the job market, you want to show that you're a go-getter and that you've done all the extracurriculars and you've had the leadership positions. But at the same time, you need to be able to focus on your job search during this time. And so in the case of this young man, he was highly involved with all these extracurriculars, and he was volunteering, and he was working out for 1 or 2 hours a day, and all these things were squeezing in on the time that he could be focusing on his job search in addition to his studies. So this is an example where you just need to prioritize. There's only so many things that you can do in the day, and focus on the things that must be done first. What are the top priorities? And then go from there. Because what needs to get done is to focus on the job search. Obviously, you've got to continue to focus on your studies. But can some of the extracurriculars or maybe the volunteering take a back seat for right now?
Yep, it's a really good point, and I covered this in did an episode on when the best time to apply for jobs was, and some people. It's a really good point, and I covered this in did an episode on when the best time to apply for jobs was, and some people like to apply for jobs when they're still in the final year of university, and that works for them. But for other people I know, it can just be they're just trying to put themselves under too much pressure. They've got the pressure of their final exams and their final part of their year, and they're also putting the pressure on themselves that they must get a job, and all these things trying to happen at exactly the same time. It doesn't always need to be like that. Just do what's right for you. If you want to apply for jobs in your final year, that's great. If you want to leave until you've graduated and then start applying, that's great as well. So just really think about And it's not about what your friends are doing, or if all your friends are managing to do it and they're getting jobs and interviews, etc. You're not doing what's right for them. Do what's right for you.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go. A lot of times it's very easy to look around, they have a job, but guess what? You can find a job as well on your timeline, and you don't need to add extra pressure if it's not healthy for you.
I completely agree. So final question then today, Lauren, before we move to the weekly quickfire questions. If there was one emotion that listeners should put their time and energy into working on, what would you suggest it is?
Oh, that's a good question. I would focus on confidence, and I'd go back to that personal branding. Be really clear about the value you can bring to an organization. Get clear about the types of jobs that you're looking for. And I know that you who are listening are probably still figuring out the kinds of things that you're interested in. So it's okay to have several different options, but make sure that when you're talking to individual people, that you're telling them based on who they are, here's what I'm interested in, and make it very specific because you want to make it easy for them to help you. And then again, remember to channel that inner rock star, because that personal brand is going to come through in your networking, in your interviews, and it's going to be that life raft through your job search when things go up and down. It will be a support to you along the way emotionally.
Excellent. I love that. Channel your inner rock star. That's a nice part for us to finish the main part of the interview on. So let's move on to the weekly quickfire questions. Looking forward to your responses here, Lauren. So first question, what one book would you recommend that listeners should read?
Well, for you who are on the management track, where you eventually want to grow into taking on a leadership position, one of my favorite leadership books is called Radical Candor. And this is by Kim Scott. And she has a really simple and refreshing way to think about leadership, where you think about challenging directly and caring personally. And you want to find that sweet spot where you both challenge directly and care personally. And because if you care, then you can be direct. But if you don't care and you're too direct, then you're just a jerk, and you can eventually go around the whole quadrant. But I think that's a great book that sets up the idea of how to be a good leader for someone who's just learning. And then, of course, I'm going to recommend take control of your job search as you're going through the job search process.
Definitely. I'll let you have that one. But brilliant. And yeah, I've not come across Radical Candor, but yeah. So next question then, Lauren, what one internet resource or website would you point listeners towards?
Well, the number one job search that I'm going to say is, of course, LinkedIn. So that is kind of a throwaway answer because it's so obvious. So then another resource that is very interesting is hunter.io that can help you to do LinkedIn searches, even if you don't have a bought up, if you don't have the premium subscription.
Oh, that sounds good. So how does that one work?
You type in the people that you're interested in getting to know or the types of roles and location, and it will come up with a list for you. It's pretty incredible.
Oh, very good. I will get on that straight after this interview. That sounds a really cool one. So thank you for that one. Good. I will get on that straight after this interview. That sounds a really cool one. So thank you for that one. Excellent. So final question then, Lauren. What one tip can listeners implement today to help them on their job search?
Well, I've already highlighted the importance of personal branding. So then the other one I'm going to come back to is network. It sounds like it's silly. I know a lot of people don't necessarily buy it, but the data is clear. Get out from behind the computer and start building connections. LinkedIn is a great way to do it. so that you can leverage your university contacts. And, a lot of people right now, especially, people want to help. So if you were to reach out to someone that is an alumnus of your university and just say, hey, I'm interested, I'm just coming out of XYZ university, would you be willing to connect with me and have a quick conversation? Most people, I would bet, would say yes.
Completely agree. It's such a powerful way to do it. And as you mentioned, people got help when they start their career, and they are always looking to help other people as they start their career. So definitely reach out to people who are doing something that you want to do, and they will give you more often than you'd think. They give you a hand up and give you some great advice, if nothing else.
Yep.
Lauren, thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed it. What is the best way that people can get in touch with you and the work that you do?
Well, feel free to go on to Amazon or wherever you buy your books, and you can take a look at Take Control of Your Job Search. And then you can also follow me at laurenherring.net, or feel free to link in with me.
Excellent. And all of the links and the link to Lauren's book will be over in the show notes, as I mentioned, at graduatejobpodcast.com/emotion.
Thank you, James.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Graduate Job Podcast. So there you go. Thanks again to the brilliant Lauren Herring. Make sure you do check out her excellent book in the show notes if you want to dig deeper into how to take control of your job search. Now, if you are serious about getting a graduate job, like properly serious, as in you want the best help you can get and you want to really invest in yourself as you look for a graduate scheme, then you need my course, How to Get a Graduate Job. It's got 8 modules, it's got 23 videos, and it's got 14 hours of content to take you through everything, and I mean everything that you need to do to get a graduate job. And as a bonus, there is also the private Facebook group where the group members are currently sharing their progress with each other, and more important, sharing them all with each other. I've been running weekly webinars for members where we go through different topics each week. Now this week it was video interviews, where we shared some of the mock recorded video interviews that some of the course members have been doing. And as a group, we critique them, we learn from each other so that everyone can learn and share the knowledge. It's a really cool group. Everyone is working together and helping each other to improve. If this sounds like something you want to be part of, then you know what to do. Get over to howtogetagraduatejob.com and sign up. You'll be glad that you did. So I hope you enjoyed the show today. Drop me a note and say hello, or book yourself a completely free 30-minute coaching session with yours truly, where we can go over whatever's on your mind. Is it applications? Do you want to do some mock interview practice? It's entirely up to you. Find the details in the show notes. And make sure you join me next week, where I have Highways England on the show, discussing their 7 different graduate schemes that they've got available. It's a goodie. I hope you enjoyed the episode today, but more importantly, I hope you use it and apply it.